All right, welcome to the Sonic Visions podcast, episode 26. I'm joined by Juan. How are you doing, Juan? Nice, nice. So, yeah. So, what's new with you, Juan? What's going on? Oh, right.
Completed with the new cups. They're right now going on review tours. So maybe you'll see a pop up on some blogs or magazines or whatnot.
Juan, I'm sorry. I think the first 10, 15 seconds of what you said didn't go through. Can you just really quickly just recap that one more time?
Basically, I'm just working through production issues, getting the making sure everything's working now. So that's about it.
And then you said one of your suppliers that supplies your cups that you make for your headphones, they got flooded. You said.
Yeah, they got flooded. So the Hungerworks studio they had some water damage to deal with. So that's delayed things a little bit on their end.
Oh, I see.
So just trying to work through that. Seems that I think the renovations are pretty much done now.
Right.
Um, so now they're trying to get everything back up and running.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So you're going to be shipping your headphone out starting when again?
Uh, August basically.
No, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, so now it's just because right now I'm still in Southern California at my parents' place. So we actually put together new workbenches and stuff like that. I tried to get a 3D printer running, but I couldn't get the issue sorted out in time. But um, basically now I have a second workshop essentially because I can't really because I go between here and San Francisco a lot. And so, once I
Right.
graduate from university, I'm probably going to be moving things down to Long Beach.
Oh yeah.
So, I'm about ready for that as well.
Cool. And
So, yeah,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
that's it. Just, some other preparations, all background stuff.
Okay, and Lana just joined us. How are you doing, Lana?
I'm doing good. How's everyone?
Good, good. What's new with you?
Not much. Just I guess have been busy. Have a lot of life stressors going on, but I'm here.
Cool, cool. Anything new in terms of the audio stuff?
Nothing new there. I sold my Euphoria, and that's the newest thing that I did.
Right, right. Okay. Do you want to talk about why you sold it?
Sure. Um, well, basically, I sold my Felix Euphoria non-anniversary edition because I heard from people that it was a bad value, but I also heard from other people that, um, it's not about value, it's about music, and that this device really. produces music very well. So, there were two sides to the argument. I already had a lower end Felix amplifier, and I thought, well, surely the more expensive one would be better. That was my logic at the time. My logic has since changed. My way of thinking has since changed. Um, so yeah, I got the Euphoria, and it was all right. I will say, like, it was just all right. I did try heavily tube rolling it, and I mean, I liked it. I don't know what to say. I liked it, but I was never like in love with it, especially for the price. You really just want to be more in love with something that costs nearly $3,000, and I never was. So then, yeah, I just got this Chinese amplifier, took the same two tubes called the X Duo TA26. It was 300 bucks, and I got so many like family and friends to compare them and listen, and I spent months listening to them, and I kept thinking, wow, this sounds like it gets me 90% to a Euphoria, and this was with tube rolls and all that, so I kind of just started resenting the thing. I would look at it on my shelf and I would be like, why were you so expensive? And the one that was cheap, my $300 amplifier, I was like, why are you so good for $300? So it just more turned into a mental battle for me to justify keeping the Euphoria. I would say Euphoria probably looked like it was better built, more premium, more high quality. It looked sleek, it looked pretty. But at the end of the day, I just kind of started resenting it for costing so much and not giving me as much as I wanted in performance. So I ended up selling it, and I am perfectly happy with what I have on my rack now. The Euphoria was kind of the thing that was making me anxious, that I spent a ton of money on something that I ended up not even liking all that much. Like, I liked it, but did I $2,700 like it? Absolutely not. So that's why I sold it.
All right, fair enough. And Flux, welcome. How's everything with you?
Good. I know it's been a while. Kind of been busy at home, but no, it was nice to get like a firsthand account of Lana's tube journey. Thank you. But yeah, for me personally, I've been knee deep in a lot of stuff at home, um, away from audio. So if anything, my my recent endeavors have allowed me to kind of use audio in a positive way, away from the workplace. And I see listener has also joined from the audience. Hi, listener.
Hi,
Hey,
listener.
Hey,
hello,
listener.
friends.
Hello.
Go on, Flux.
No, what's been up with you? I feel like we both you and I have been away from the podcast in quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I think we've both kind of been busy with other things. But happy to be back. Obviously, still listening to music every day, using my gear, all that stuff. Um, yeah, no real news to report. Sorry if you hear my cat in the background. I gotta feed her, actually. Be right
Oh,
back.
okay. Um, Well, then I guess the only thing I've got to add is that I think since I've last been on the podcast, the most recent update in terms of gear would be that I swapped my Bricasti over from AES to the network card. And then I also added speakers at my desk so that, at least in the warmer months, I don't have something um, like a headphone generating additional heat around my ears. So, yeah, that's about it.
All right, awesome. So, yeah, let's get into it. with the first question. So this is kind of a music focused episode. So I wanted to talk about your kind of top three favorite artists or albums that you really love and why you like them or the album so much.
Would somebody else like to go first?
Juan or
thinking.
Lana or Juan or listener.
Sorry, I just got back. What was the question?
The question is your top three favorite albums or artists that you love and why.
Of all time?
Or it could be recent, whatever you want.
Okay, I'll go with the easy one.
Yeah.
It's Daft Punk. I don't know what you expected out of me. No, I guess I'll keep it to artists instead of albums, just because um there are more artists that I like as a whole body of work, as opposed to just picking out like a snapshot, relatively speaking, in time. Um, so obviously Daft Punk. I'm not going to go into that one. Just that I started as a fan late and have appreciated their work since then. The other one is probably a really generic one, but I think is more appropriate to my history in music, which is Linkin Park. It was probably the band that got me into music appreciation in the first place as like an active activity. I remember, before I can probably date it, 2002, since 2003 was when it shifted. But like 2002 and before, um, I remember things just kind of being vague noise. Um, yeah, vague noise with melody, and sometimes I could pick out harmony, but I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I would say Linkin Park was the group that with their, it feels like beating a dead horse, but with their first two albums that were landmarks um in the pop landscape at the time, in the, quote, new metal landscape at the time, um they were what flipped me over to actually paying attention to the music. I started to understand later on, like way later on, after I had graduated high school, after I graduated college, where the different like engineering techniques were in play. I feel like because of Linkin Park, I got into instrumental music and even, cared to do any type of music performance, not because of those albums, but like I said, because of how I started to treat music. I wanted to also be an active contributor to the landscape as well. Um, and then I would say finally, in terms of a third artist, it's a little bit more of like a deep cut pick, and um, some others would probably say guilty pleasure. I would just say, longtime fan of their output, which is a smaller ish. Um, I guess I'd categorize them as like harder rock now. Maybe a little bit of metalcore in their earlier discography, which is called The Devil Wears Prada. I don't know why I got hooked onto them back in 2007, and I guess I was a scene kid at one point, and then that band came with me all the way into adulthood, and I still enjoy their output. I can say, like, as a hallmark album of when it went from more of that guilty pleasure type of thing to something I enjoyed, was Dead Throne. And maybe if there's some, metal fans listening out there, they would know that Adam D of Killswitch Engage was the one that was kind of behind the engineering process on that album. And at the time of release in 2011, I feel like that was an excellent coming of age record for the band, and also for me as a person at that time, moving away from the local environment of high school to collegiate environment where um, I was surrounded by a lot of greater and even more superior students. Like I thought I was hot poop in high school, and then kind of getting that sobering experience of being not the best anymore. um like right around that time there was a lot of reflection on self in that, and Dead Throne, and also some of the following output was awesome to hear from them. So that's my those are my three.
Nice.
Thanks. Anyone else?
I'll go
Yeah.
next.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I discovered this band called Blackmore's Night when I was 13 or so, and they have still followed me into adulthood. I saw them in concert. They are a sort of Renaissance folk with a bit of like rock element to them. It's a husband and wife duo. It's Richie Blackmore, who I believe he's involved with the band Rainbow. I believe he had involvement with Deep Purple. And I know he was a guitarist for Dio, which I know everyone loves Dio. May he rest in peace. I love Dio. Um, so yeah, it's him and his wife Candace Knight, and they just do imagine just Renaissance fair music. I don't know why I was vibing with that so hard as a teenager, but I still am. Like I love all of their albums. I could throw out like there's Shadow of the Moon, Fires at Midnight, just so many good albums. So I love Blackmore's Night. If you haven't, check them out. Like I highly recommend. The other more recent singer that I have just been obsessed with is the singer named LP, not Linkin Park LP. They just go by LP. I was recently at a concert of theirs, and their dynamic range is just nuts. They throw in a lot of whistling elements. They do like opera sort of. They can swing their voice from like high to low. They do like some pop elements, some rock elements, some very like a cappella type of stuff. Their voice is just off the charts amazing. And I guess my third one, I can't pick between Fleetwood Mac or Leonard 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 Cohen, because I think they're both amazing and I grew up listening to both of them, which is why they're both very nostalgic for me. I think Fleetwood Mac's Rumors was, I know it's a highly overhyped album. I know I'm being like a basic girl right
No.
now when I say that.
That's a
Okay.
classic. That's a classic.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, there was so much drama and popcorn going around when Rumors was made. You know, they were
Yeah.
fighting, they were breaking up, they were like packing their stuff and leaving. I think there was even an incident. I don't know if this was around the Rumors era, but I know there was a story where Buckingham like threw a guitar at Stevie Nicks on stage, and like he doesn't remember it at all because he was under the influence. And Christine McVie, she like ran after him and wanted to like kick his ass. Like, why did you throw a guitar at Stevie Nicks? Like there was just
Yeah.
that much tension and drama going around, and somehow they managed to produce a beautiful album.
I've heard so many like stories like that um from even my parents regarding that album. So I mean, I think it's a pretty good pick, even if it is pretty it could be seen as very cliche. I mean, it's one of the reasons why every single Can Jam or event table has that album like either downloaded locally or otherwise. There's like insane history behind it that everybody knows or a lot of people are familiar with.
Yes, and luckily that album was very well recorded. Like I would go with The Chain over Hotel California, as my test track because, well, they're both very well recorded. I think I'm just sick of hearing the Eagles, you know?
Yeah, I mean, some people, self included, ain't they're not looking for a ride on the Hotel California train every single time they sit down at a booth.
Yeah. And I also just wanted to add like how lucky I feel when an album I really love is mastered very well because now that I have higher end gear, it really shows whether it is or isn't. And sometimes you have a favorite album and you just adore it. You know, you can adore it to pieces, but then you put it on and you're like, "Oh, oh honey, who mastered this?" You know, like it just does it like didn't age well or it didn't get, for example, this was way before Stranger Things made it popular, but for years now, I've been telling people that
Kate Bush.
Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush has been my favorite song for years, and I feel like now if I say that, people are gonna be like, "Oh, I bet he just say
No,
that because
no,
of
I've
Stranger
got the
Things."
receipts.
Yeah, and I'll be like, "I have the receipts. I have the date when I added it to all my Spotify playlists I'll have, you know?" Um, so yeah, I took a listen to the Hounds of Love album, and this was even the remastered version of the Hounds of Love album by Kate Bush. And I was like, they could have mastered it a lot better. Like you can just tell that it wasn't mastered to the same level that something like Rumors was, and it shows because I stuck it on just my speakers, my headphones, and I was like, you know what, this album deserved a better master. And now that, you know, Kate Bush is trending so much, I'm hoping that we get like a remaster because
Right.
I adore Kate Bush's Hounds of Love album, but golly, it was not mastered well, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, um I think that's like part of its just overall sound for better or worse. Like, those kind of like brick walled but very thin and like gated reverb drenched drums and just the
Yeah,
kind of like I don't know, like just the kind of manufactured distance from things not having much heft or weight to them. I feel like there's not much you could do to like pretty that up without like going back into the mix. I'd be interested to hear it, but like with the whole Stranger Things going on, I did revisit it recently and I was like, for something that I knew had that kind of like drenched in 80s aesthetic type of sound to it, it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be after not having listened to it for a while. So,
I had a revisitation with that song just before Stranger Things when I remember there was a radio station locally that started playing a cover of it,
oh.
of Running Up That Hill. And I remember I showed it to my better half, and she mentioned, she's like, "Oh my goodness gracious, this sounds awful compared to the original." And she is way into vocals, and she picks that out every time. I
Mhm.
mean, especially with female vocalists. So then getting a revisit of the new, or really the new trend, but of an older song, an older version, the original, that felt kind of refreshing, honestly, compared to what I was hearing before. Um,
yeah,
I'm not going to get into it, but I just recently had a job change, and the version that I had before, when I would be um delivering, versus now where I'm just doing like a morning commute to work, the difference between like that version that I knew before that was a cover and the original now, um Like I have a new appreciation for Kate Bush the artist as opposed to the artist behind a song that I knew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that.
Do you guys know how Kate Bush like came to be famous? David Gilmour of Pink Floyd, she was his protege.
Yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
I was
I
not aware of
learned
that.
that only from a video on YouTube recently. Um, in the same way that or I guess in a similar way to how Prince had handpicked some folks as like I want you to be my protege type of thing, and I know so many of them now to have careers that I am happy to observe. Um, so yeah, I definitely get that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't know that at all. That's super cool. I assume it's like a situation where like, she was just like some person in like a demo tape or something got to Gilmore and he's like, "Oh, this is dope," and then found like,
Yeah, I don't know like the depth of the meeting or the
Yeah, I
history
don't
behind
either.
it. Yeah.
got it.
But to be David Gilmour's protege, like he was hot stuff back then. He was like Pink Floyd is to this day I say one of the biggest bands, like up there with the greats. So like
I mean, yeah.
yeah, for
They're
sure.
certainly iconic on multiple levels, and especially with the oh my goodness, excuse me. Especially with the current landscape of what is considered classical or classic rock, more specifically. If you turn on a classic rock station, they're playing Pink Floyd. If you turn on, or if you look up, a lot of publications, best albums of all time, Dark Side of the Moon is somewhere. I mean,
Absolutely.
even though it's very much like the stereotypical zeitgeist type of pick. I mean, it's always there. In some ways, in very similar to Rumors, um, there's a reason for it, albeit I don't vibe with it as much as my dad does, but you know,
I love Pink Floyd. It's just how do I put this? I would put them on if I really wanted to take a nap because it's like sleepy music for me.
oh my. So a gear related note, and then we can go on to I guess someone else's three picks. Is that I had showed my dad a pair of stacks. It was a pair of L700s, and I had hooked it up to his old Onkyo, I don't know, something or other AVR unit, and I had used uh, what I think it was the Woo EStat, uh,
Transformer.
yeah, transformer unit for the stacks, and he fell asleep. But I remember at the start of it being like, "But Dad, you're gonna fall asleep if you listen to Dark Side of the Moon." He's like, "I'm still gonna enjoy it." So anyway, who would anybody else like to contribute to the three questions or the
I
three
I can,
artists?
but Smod can go first if he wants to.
No, go ahead, listener.
Okay. So I'll do like one all time, and then like one new favorite, and then one that I've kind of like gone back and found. Like, okay, so the old
Okay.
favorite is definitely Radiohead is my favorite band of all. They got some bangers for sure. In terms of like being an album band, I don't know that there are many out there that really do so just consistently well on every single record. Um, and there's definitely a gradation to like uh which records I prefer over others. And there are worse records and better records, but even their worst record is still like an easy like 8 out of 10 for me. Um, so they're definitely my favorite. And they actually the frontman and the main guitarist, who are like the two principal, I guess, songwriters of the band, um, just came out with a new album called under a new name called The Smile. The record's called A Light for Attracting Attention. And they got this new drummer, and he's insane. So I've been listening to that a lot because it's very much so Radiohead, but a little different. It's got that same kind of like spoopy vibe, but it's definitely a little bit more instrumentally focused instead of atmospherically focused, which is cool.
Nice.
So that's like what I would say is my old favorite. My new favorite has been this woman named Lizzie McAlpin, who I've been telling everyone to go listen to this woman's records, because like over the past 2, maybe 3 years, I've been getting way more into like top 40 pop music, specifically like female fronted singer-songwriter stuff. And like this just kind of blows all the stuff that I've been hyped about over the last few years out of the water in terms of just like the songwriting quality. The production quality is fantastic. It's like a very warm, cozy record, but it definitely gets like an audiophile seal of approval too. It is like a very, you know, detail-oriented mix. But the songs are just, pretty standard singer-songwritery folk pop, you know, type stuff. And her newest record, 5 Seconds Flat, is just like I talked about this in one of the articles I just did for Denfi, but I'm not really a huge lyrics person these days, and I'm more so just into the kind of the sonics of the music and the kind of mood conveyed by the sonic elements alone. And I feel like there's so much coziness and comfort in the kind of palette she uses throughout the record. So I really encourage anyone listening to this, including the four of you, to
Mm.
check her out because she's
It's
great.
already like my favorite album of 2022.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you're preaching to this choir of one right now, in terms of the speaking group. Um, I mean, I'm singing, hallelujah over here as you're as you're preaching to this choir of one. So yeah,
Yeah.
I also can admit, like, I loved this album when I first heard it on my gear, both headphones and speakers. Anyway,
Yeah, it's cozy, but there's tons to unpack too. So that's great.
I'll
And
I'll
then
add her to my list.
cool. Yeah, I'll go ahead and like put her name in the podcast chat because it's kind of a weird spelling.
You described her kind of like this one band I like called the Pierces, if anyone's heard of them.
No, I'm not familiar.
I have not. I would, if I had to pigeonhole an artist, which I don't like doing, but I would say it's like another flavor on Phoebe Bridgers.
Yeah, so
But
you mentioned that, and then I realized that like I hadn't really listened to Phoebe Bridgers, and I went back and listened, and I was like, oh, I totally understand what you mean. That is actually a really good
specifically
comparison.
Punisher.
I think that's the record I listened to.
Yeah. So that tie of like 5 Seconds Flat and Punisher, like if you like one,
You
from
will
my
like,
point of view, you're also gonna like the other.
yeah,
So
yeah. And then what was I gonna do for the third one? Oh, for the third one was it's an artist that like I've loved for a long time, but I kind of forgot about and stopped listening to. But then I recently revisited them, and I talk about this in another one of the Denfi articles. But they're a really good time. It's this record called Attack on Memory by this band called Cloud Nothings. And it's a this rockish indie band in like 2009. Like there was like a huge like revitalization of like reverbed out, specifically spring reverbed out, like garagey indie rock. Um, that was kind of like surfy and stuff like that. And Cloud Nothings had a record like that in 2009. But then in 2011, they approached Steve Albini, and who was known for recording the Pixies and Slint and his own projects and Nirvana, and he's definitely got his own sonic palette that he usually works within. Very focused on kind of natural timbre and room acoustics, and drums sound big but not like compressed to sound like a gunshot or anything like that. There's like a very natural envelope to drums and a very natural largesse to like guitars. Like they have a lot of cabinet resonance and like bass, and it's all a very organic experience, but it's usually like harder rock music. So Cloud Nothings approached him to work on this record, and the record they came up with is like probably like the best recorded punk album of all time. Because like we think of punk as like being decidedly lo-fi as far as a genre association or fidelity association would go, but it's like immaculately recorded, and it is not lacking in any of the intensity that you would think something so well recorded would be. It has all of the kind of snarl and anger and just energy to it, and the viscera of a punk record, but at the same time like doesn't piss you off listening on your audiophile gear, which you know I found, especially being in the hobby for the last 2 or so years, like it's increasingly hard to find records like that. I used to be super into punk and emo music, and like most of the stuff I used to listen to is problematic in terms of how it was
Preach.
mixed. Yeah,
Yeah.
so coming to find that album again, and it's their only album that sounds like that. So I wish I could recommend them as a whole, but their later and earlier records really don't sound like this one record. Um, Coming to
Nice.
find that record again after like more than 10 years away from it was a huge treat with my new gear, and the benefit of not only hindsight but nostalgia.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's
cool.
my three.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right.
oh,
Smod,
well-
do you want to go, or do
well-
you want to move on?
Oh, what about Juan? I think Juan, do you want to mention your three
Juan.
artists
Yeah, sorry.
/ favorite albums?
Back. I don't really have three off the top of my head.
Okay.
Let's see. Shout out to fucking what is it? Apple of Universal Gravity by Shina Ringo. And then whatever the new album by Finding New. That's all I got.
Can you do me
Okay.
a favor and write those in the podcast chat?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, mines are really fast. So basically, one is called Fourplay, Fourplay. It's a group. It's kind of like a jazz, pop, kind of modern, kind of eclectic kind of jazz, and they're just awesome. Really good, really amazing mastering, and just awesome. For someone who's looking for kind of jazz, but not kind of traditional jazz, like not traditional jazz trio and that kind of thing. It's really good. And then if we go to a totally different genre of ambient, which is one of my favorite genres, my favorite ambient artist is John Serrie, JONNSERRIE, and he does a lot of space ambient. And I'm really into ambient and space ambient, and he's always been my number one. It's just I love his music. And the last one, I would probably go to synthwave, and it would be Hello Meteor. That artist is just consistently really good. It's kind of like synthwave, kind of a little bit of tech ambient, and sometimes just tech. I would say synthwave, tech ambient kind of music. So yeah, those three are just awesome artists that I really like.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
Smod and I have the same music taste because I love jazz, I love synthwave, and I love like ambient and space ambient.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I was
that's
gonna say,
awesome.
I do have those genres covered in mine. In fact, I feel like I've been listening more in that vein as opposed to like the old favorites that I mentioned. Um, it's just one of those things where I put rose tinted glasses on with what has kind of formed me and shaped me over the years, that I have those in higher regard than, what I currently listen to. Because what I currently listen to, it's different. It's different than what I put on the pedestal here.
Yeah. I often feel like I have my favorites that are set in stone, like I've mentioned, but I noticed that as the times change, for example, I've seen a huge resurgence in like synthwave, like the vaporwave, sort of sleepy, cozy. It can either be fast or slow, just very futuristic sort of vibes. For example, I've seen a lot of resurgence of things that kind of remind me of like Julie Cruz, who did the Twin Peaks. Who did the Twin Peaks main title song. I've seen a lot of music be like that, like things by The Chromatics, Beach House, just to name a few bands off the top of my head. Just very, like, very, like, into synth and that sort of style. I've just been vibing with that so much. It hasn't like paid its dues yet to become like a core favorite, because I feel like a lot of the stuff that I mentioned as being like core favorites were things that I discovered in early childhood and as a teenager. So I'm like constantly evolving with what I listen to, and I noticed that me and a lot of other people, like, we're just really vibing with like the vaporwave, the synths, the ambient music, all of that. That seems to be very in right now. And so even though I have my old favorites, I just find myself listening to a lot of that stuff that seems to have peaked in popularity. Like a lot of stuff now I listen to and I will think, wow, this could have just been plucked right out of the 80s, with all the synths in there, and like it's just it's like a nostalgia trip that's that's current, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. And yeah, I think something just resonates with me with synthwave. I just it's just a different type of sound. Obviously, kind of a more of a retro sound, but it's one that I gravitate to, and especially when it's kind of a little bit non-traditional synthwave, and especially without vocals. I like synthwave, where it's just the non-vocal kind of beat or rhythm or whatever it is. That's the kind I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Sometimes you come in with like some gnarly kind of super classic old school vocals, and that kind of ruins it for me. But yeah, it's Hello Meteor is really cool. It's synthwave, but it's like also kind of a little bit different. So it's pretty cool.
I'll check them out.
Yeah.
I've also noticed synthwave sounds amazing on tubes. It just gives it the sort of holographic. I don't know how to describe it. Like you guys with tubes know that like synthwave, just in my opinion, sounds amazing on a tube setup.
Yeah, I agree. It's really good. Techno too. I found like my a lot of my friends who've heard tubes and kind of now swear by solid state. One of their arguments is how techno is just not as fast and precise and that kind of thing with tube gear they've heard. But I find that it adds this layering and this 3D effect, which is really makes it very immersive, and so that's why I like it with tubes as well.
Yeah. Just here again, a closing thought. I can see where like synthwave with a tube amps kind of soft clipping going on can add to a more retro hi-fi kind of vibe. And with with some of the other genres. I think, more specifically jazz feels a little bit more true to source than, say, um, some various solid state designs and topologies. And, I would say for EDM, I probably still prefer, or anything that would be electronic with the purpose of being impactful. The audio Discord champion of the year of that being Lorne. Um, like I think of Lorne, I think of like solid state, the most impact and macro dynamic capability possible. Like I, to me, I think of that when I think of electronic in terms of like really like tubes can't do it justice. There's just no way. Like
I have an EQ curve just for listening to Lorne.
yeah. Yeah, so like there again, it's like one of those audiophile favorites amongst the Discord community, to where it's like, if you want bass, if you want, you know, um, to hear what kind of air the driver can displace, that's the pick.
Cool. The next topic is an example of how music has helped you in your life. Maybe there was a certain track or a certain song. I'll just quickly get mine out of the way. Basically, I don't know if you guys know about Street Fighter, that old classic video game, but the theme of Guile in Street Fighter was something that really helped me a lot. Like when I went through tough times and went through my studies, and I was kind of just having a hard time and just kind of down. I would always listen to the Guile music, and there's an internet meme that the Guile theme goes with everything. So if you search for that in YouTube, you'll see like the Guile theme applied to like all different scenes from like all different movies, and it's pretty funny. But that was a pretty inspirational kind of video game track for me.
Okay, I'll go ahead next. I would say for help in life, um, it's a little bit backwards in that it was more in times of mental help as opposed to um, like internal struggles, mental help, as opposed to situational assistance. But I'll just say that when it came to listening to music, there were at times where I was able to enjoy, I'll say, enjoy the fact that I was reaching out for some type of help in a situation where I felt helpless. And that then led me to, um, it led me to therapy. It led me to a lot of things that like make me better as a person after that fact, and even today, and I know for the future, because of the fact that those, like, for better or worse, there are memories I have, they're tied to music, they're a reminder of the place where I am now as opposed to where I was then. Also, hi Zach. as
Oh,
we're
what's up,
getting
bud?
Hey
Hi.
Zach.
as we're getting super heavy with Flux history,
Don't worry,
Yeah.
I'm gonna add on to the sad train.
Oh God. All right. Hi.
um
Sounds good.
as a bit of a detour, how have you been? I feel like it's been a minute.
Yeah. No, it feels like we've had like a month or two since we last got together for a podcast. But yeah, everything's good in Australia at the moment. It's morning. It's beautiful. And yeah, I'm happy to be here with you guys having a chat.
Sweet. All right. Hey Lana. I mean,
Yeah,
you seem like you wanted to piggyback off right what I was saying, so
sure. I'm gonna try to get through this like without crying. But all right. In 2019, one of my best friends in the whole world passed away. And the day it happened, um, when I found out, I channeled my grief into making a playlist. I don't know why that is so funny now. It definitely wasn't then. I created a playlist of everything that reminded me of them, some of his favorite songs, some songs that we listened to together. Like he was a big Pink Floyd fan. He loved Kansas. Like um one of the last like big things we did together was we went to a Kansas concert front row. I got him tickets to go with me, and like I just have this memory of Dust in the Wind came on and I started crying at the concert and he hugged me. So, okay, so I made this playlist when I found out that he passed away, and I filled it with all these songs that I have memories attached to. I'm sorry. And it really helped me with the grieving process. And to this day, that playlist is still up. And if I'm ever just having a moment to like where I need to revisit all that, I go back into it. And like music has this power to just like punch you right in the gut sometimes. So it'll sometimes feel like I'm ripping the band-aid off all over again when I revisit that playlist. But then, I do my thing, I cry about it, I feel sorry for myself, and then it's like catharsis kicks in. And I feel like I'm one step closer to like feeling better about the whole thing. Anyway, that's my thing.
I
Thank you for sharing.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Anna.
But I and this is not a negative, but um I just know that the situations that I've been in where I feel like I have tapped those emotions, they haven't come close. And I am so sorry that that's been um a checkpoint in your, I guess, emotional roller coaster of of what has formed so much of your attachment to that playlist. Or in some of the music too, because now it almost feels like inseparable.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
where
Now it's like some of my favorite songs. I'll revisit them and I'll be like, oh, remember like when we listened to that or we went to that concert or we like things like that. Certain songs do get a permanent attachment with someone or something, whether it be a place, a person, a time, a feeling. Just they're kind of like little snapshots in time.
yeah,
So, like a lot of things in that playlist are songs that I absolutely adored, like a lot of Pink Floyd, a lot of Leonard Cohen, The Smiths. I'm literally
right,
looking at it right now.
yeah,
Some Bob Dylan, Fleetwood Mac, because like we both loved Fleetwood Mac, and that was also one of the last concerts we went to was a Fleetwood Mac concert in 2018 or so.
yeah,
So, then it just a lot of this stuff is a lot easier to listen to now, I will say, than it was.
yeah,
But there are a few certain songs that are just too heavily interwoven with the pain. So it's like they'll forever be a challenge to get through no matter what. Because I've tried listening to them all the way through and it'll just be too much. But I can
right.
say that like 80% of that playlist won't elicit such a terrible like reaction out of me.
Right. There's a couple
Yeah.
where, yeah, I feel that way in particular, not always under the circumstances that have just been, laid out, but um yeah, I feel that. I feel like all of us here know how emotionally um charged someone can get over the song that they're listening to, especially if it has so much attachment to a memory, um, positive or negative. But unfortunately, with humans, kind of suck. They remember they remember the negative stuff way way more um, than the positive stuff on volume. But yeah, on a potentially lighter note, um, does anyone else have an example of music where you found assistance in it?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay.
Um, so we got to go back quite a ways because I mean, I've basically the more than half of my life has been devoted to it in some way or another. Um, I was in middle school. I was not good at sports. I was not, particularly talented in any one respect. And then my sister picked up a guitar, and I was like, "Whoa, that's really cool." And then I picked up the guitar. I was like, "Whoa, that's really cool." And then I didn't do homework. I basically just coasted throughout all of school, but I had something. I had a direction. I had something more important than I gathered most of the people surrounding me had. It was this very intense, distracting connection to music. So I, was playing guitar all the time. I started writing my own songs, played a bunch of other instruments, at the expense of maybe my social life and, I guess, my scholastic performance. Um, I just kind of was lucky enough to be given this interest in something that will never stop unfolding for me. Um, there will always be new things to unpack and learn and experience within just music as an art form. And, going from playing to writing to recording and mixing and now to just like really focusing on listening for the past 2 years. I mean, I've just been going through the whole gamut of whatever music can offer, and I still don't feel like I've scratched the surface. So as far as how music has helped me in life, it's given me direction and a thing to keep constantly pursuing that I know will never really run out of things to teach me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes. I mean, I gather a lot of us are in a similar place of appreciation.
Yeah.
This is a very heavy conversation, and I'm appreciating all of your words. I'm just listening here quietly.
Enjoying your breakfast?
Yeah, that and sculling my protein shake, breakfast shake, life meal shake thing.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
as a bit of a detour, I
yeah.
definitely feel that. That's been a that has been a positive thing for me because I will wake up, have a finally get in the routine of having a breakfast, not skipping it, not going to lunch on coffee and maybe some gum and a mint. Um, so I, as simple as it might be, like the protein shake type of thing has helped me out with breakfast a lot, and I've enjoyed mixing some coffee in with it too.
Hey, let's go.
Just for context for me, what was the original question that sparked this conversation? I can see the conversation. Is it just how did music help you in your life? Specific examples that we're going through at the moment? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
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 Nice. Yeah.
I tried to format the podcast chat so that like the current question was also like the most recent.
Oh, fancy. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I see that now. We're moving up in the world here.
I know, you get some organizational proficiency here on the back end. It's me just wanting to make sure that the current question is at least known. But yeah. Do we want to move on
Yeah, I feel like people shared
to
some really
something a little bit
great
more
stories.
lighter?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
That's all right.
I'm right there too, Lana. I'm right there too. I might not have gone as public with that and as raw as that as you did, but just know that I just want to make sure that there's a segment for it, and then we can all brighten up and look forward.
That was actually quite improvised. Like, I didn't go into the podcast being like, I'm gonna bring up sad shit. It's just
Yeah.
It
No,
it happened in the
know.
heat of the moment, and then like I started crying, and I was like, crap, I'm crying in front of all my audio friends. But it's
No,
all good.
I mean, let's call it for what it is. It was relevant considering the situation.
Yes, my point was music is cathartic and healing, and I don't know, for me it either gets me really hyped, really excited when I'm happy, and then like I ride that sort of happy train. And on the flip side, I know there are a lot of memes of I listen to sad music to be more sad. Well, I am that person that will do that, but I do feel better after all that is over.
Zach, if you want, maybe you can give us your three favorite albums or artists, whether all time or recent, because that was just the prior question.
Oh, look, that would take me more than a minute, but I'll do one album, and that's just because this is a no-brainer for me. And that's Rob Dugan's Furious Angels. He's an Australian DJ that got
Oh, I
popular
love him.
in the early
Sorry.
90s. Yeah, no, that's all right. Like it was, I think, around 2002 that he dropped Furious Angels, and that was he did some of the music for The Matrix, and that's where I first heard it. But turns out the album is like a really heavy, deeply profound, lyrically genius album that front to back I just love. It's very dark. It uses a lot of classical instrumental components, then mixed in with like electronic dance music. Then he's also got like a Tom Waits guttural, extremely 1000 cigarettes kind of voice. And I don't know, just the combination of those three elements has made it an album that I've just never been able to ignore. I just always go back to it, always listen to it, and it really connects with me. I don't know, lyrically, like most of the time I'm one of those listeners where I'm actually very bad at hearing lyrics. My brain seems to focus on melodies and rhythm and percussion and ignore lyrics almost entirely.
Same.
So, but that particular album, I don't know why, but every single lyric seems to resonate with my brain, and I can't even not hear them if I want to. So I don't know. It's
Yeah.
that one for me is the one I want to mention. If I could get anyone to force them to listen to it and enjoy it and lyrically go through it as well, because there's some really amazing philosophical points in the
Yeah.
album as well. So that's the one I'd wanna throw out there.
Yeah, my
Not
favorite track of his is Will You Follow Me?
Oh yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's very sad and heavy, and he uses a lot of Elgar as the classical components, I think, in that song as well. So yeah, I just love Elgar, and I love his voice, and I love the lyrics. So yeah, I'm glad you found it too, Lana, and that you've been enjoying him for a while.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. And I also heard him from the same place you did.
Yeah. If he ever did anything live that I could get to where he sang and brought in an orchestra or a symphony, I would find a way to be there, because that would be a pivotal point in my life to be able to go and see that live.
Yeah. I I feel like I was born in the wrong timeline, considering my Daft Punk appreciation. Um, Not that it's the same, but I definitely feel that drive of being like, anywhere in the world, anywhere, it does not matter. I want to experience this um, in the modern age, at least for me. So yeah, I I get that a lot. Especially since they have, like, the two in particular haven't performed in forever. So, and probably won't unless there's a huge sum of money behind it, but anyway.
All right. Let's move to the last and final question. I'm going to kind of combine 4 and 5 because they're related, but it's about music mastering and specifically maybe sharing experiences that you have of very well mastered music and how that impacted the enjoyment you had in listening to music. And then what you do when you come across poorly mastered music, maybe some kind of classic music that you like, but it's kind of not well mastered. How do you make adjustments, or do you make adjustments in terms of your gear or the way you listen to appreciate it?
I might start this one off. I run into this problem all the time. Um, I'm not going to use any specific examples because I feel there are so many well mastered and poorly mastered things in my playlist. So it's a coin flip of whether I'm going to land on a well mastered thing or a poorly mastered thing. And I if I'm being honest, I do think that since I got better gear and whatnot, I do struggle with like getting over the hurdle of just listening to the music and not critiquing it so hard and not sitting there thinking, "Oh, this isn't mastered that well." Because I mentioned I adore Kate Bush. I love her. But like a lot of her stuff was not very well mastered, and I noticed that yeah, I really struggle to sort of turn off that sort of analytical side of my brain when I hear poorly mastered things and just enjoy things for what they are. I feel that with very, very sort of vintage, I mean like the 30s, the 40s, oldies, that sort of stuff, a lot of it wasn't well mastered, but you sort of listen to it and it gets a pass. So I feel like it's definitely a mental block for me where if I'm listening to like the golden oldies, um, all that stuff from that era, um, if it's not well mastered, it almost adds to sort of the vintage vibe, if that makes sense. And it's like my brain sort of accepts it. It's like, oh, this is an oldies song. It's not that well mastered, but it sort of adds to its charm. But there's a certain point, I think, I'm not sure exactly what decade it's on, where if tracks are not well mastered, they don't get as much of a pass from me. I don't think, oh, well, it's an oldies, it's like early mid 1900s, so it gets a pass. If it's from like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and it's not well mastered, I feel like I'm harder on it. And I think, well, I wish they did this album more justice, or I wish they did a remaster, or if they did a remaster, but I don't think it fixed enough of the problems, it will distract me when I listen
Yeah.
to gear. And I'm trying not to be like that because like it's not a conscious thing. I'm not sitting there being like, okay, I'm gonna be a snob about it. It's just I don't know how to explain it. It's just almost like an OCD thing. I'll be sitting there looking at some of my favorite albums from the past few decades and I'll be like, why weren't you mastered well? And I mean, as for remedying that, I don't know. I feel like if I put on um like if I had some more lo-fi gear, it will sound better because it's not as revealing. But I also just don't want to flip-flop, you know, I don't want to have a designated set of speakers or something just to listen to poorly mastered stuff on. I feel like if that's the case, then I go into the car and listen on the car system
Yeah.
because that's where like we all know like you can be blasting Metallica in your car and it sound good, but then like you can be blasting Metallica like on your Bricasti, like with your big speakers and your like high-end headphones, and you'll be sitting there like, Metallica, why couldn't they just master their stuff better?
I
You know?
mean, I still feel that way with my Master of Puppets rip. I still get that enjoyment out of that record, but yeah, I mean, to kind of take your baton and run with my answer. Um, I would say that well mastered music just kind of it happens. I appreciate it. I don't expect everything to be great. I feel like I have more moments where I appreciate pop that I have heard in the last 15 years, um, uh, maybe 25, where I end up appreciating what is there as opposed to critiquing how terrible it is compared to whatever I would consider the best. Um, as for like how I would adjust my gear, most of the time I would put my stuff on R2R. I'm gonna be honest, I would just put it on like a Socris, or I would put it on an Yggdrasil or anything of that nature, and I would use that as the poorly mastered music copium
Yeah,
that I would use at that particular time. I had
yeah,
a
you're
Matrix.
right. If I
I
may,
Yeah, no, go ahead.
when I had a I know when I had a Bifrost 2, which I know is not like the pinnacle of multi-bit and R2R, but I did notice that it made a lot of poorly mastered things sound better. And maybe like now I just have my Bricasti, which is Delta Sigma. I have noticed that it is more brutal on poorly recorded music, and I didn't even make the correlation until you brought up R2R. So thank you, because that makes me think I might need to reinvest in an R2R DAC again.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, like for context, I have an M1, a Bricasti M1 as my headphone DAC. It should probably be my speaker DAC, but for the sake of the use case, it's a headphone DAC. And then I have a Dangerous Music Convert 2 as the speaker DAC. It's kind of both system synergy and how much I use it. I'm down to those two. I don't have any more really. But that being said, when I felt like I was caring about mastering differences, I felt myself preferring more of an R2R as a general sense, just encompassing the data points where I felt this way. I felt R2R being friendly to poorly mastered music. If I was using something that was Delta Sigma, or if I was using something that was FPGA based, in both cases, I felt like I was having to do more chain maintenance to get a desirable result than just hooking it up to, um, in the examples that I mentioned, a Socris, um, either 1541 or 2541, or my old shit Yggdrasil that I lived with for a while. Um, Not optimally set up, but whatever. That being said, like, I do I don't mind what the Bercasti does for my poorly mastered music. I just feel like at this point, overall, I don't care as much. So it's something where I can enjoy it when I want to. And if it's even a little bit bothersome, I don't mind it as much. Um, who would like to go next?
I feel like I can go because it's probably a different answer than pretty much everyone else in this chat,
Sure.
if not everyone else. So I think unlike all of you, I use EQ pretty regularly, and something that I've found in kind of figuring out my ideal curve is kind of that if a recording is or a master is quote unquote poor, the problem areas tend to be like, a few like predictable places. Um, and when a recording is good, it's good. So you don't really got to do anything. And, something reasonably compliant to the preference curves that we, are well acquainted with at this point is usually fine. But for example, on a lot of, poorly recorded like punk music or emo music, the 3 to 5 kilohertz region is super poorly managed. But something I manage that with is EQ, and I'll just dip that area, relative to Harman, or I'll just go to my personal curve, which is a little more forgiving in that area. Another common area where stuff can get whack, for lack of a better term, is like the mid bass to lower mid transition. So like that 60 to let's say 200 hertz area where you'll commonly find the bloat and stuff. That's totally an area that you can address depending on your target curve. I do find Harman to even be a little bit too inflated in that mid bass area, so my personal target dips that out a bit. But I don't really collect a lot of gear. I pretty much just have one DAC, one amp, one or two headphones that I use. So I find if I run into a song that I really want to listen to, but the recording is problematic, it may just be like my prior experience as a mix engineer speaking, but I find it easiest to just like pull up an EQ, get rid of the area that's bothering me, or just reduce it and just enjoy the music.
Yeah. I feel like that's the skill that I want to have, but instead
Same.
I continue to own headphones that do that for me.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean,
Like,
I feel like if I
yeah.
didn't, I would want other headphones that do all of these other things well. But I just feel like HD 800 is just mutable enough. Like there's some things you're never going to change about it. It's always going to be very kind of what's the word? Ephemeral sounding. The decay is never going to be super luxurious or rich or anything like that. It's always going to be kind of thin sounding, but you can get close enough to where uh, it's not always a problem, and it's mutable enough in that you can get it to sound a few different ways as well. If you did want to have different curves for different types of music, you could. I don't do that. It's a good one headphone for me. The other one being like a lo-fi closed back that I like but don't really recommend to people.
All right. Smod, Zach, do you have any thoughts on this?
Is Smod even here, or is he like napping? Because he sometimes has a nap in the middle of the podcast. I'm pretty sure.
I'm gonna take that as a yeah.
Yeah, he's nap. He napping. He nap.
All right, this is an
I had
unregulated
no
podcast
idea that
now.
happens.
Yeah, it has happened before. I'll continue. Maybe he'll wake up soon.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Can't believe we bored him to sleep.
I can.
No, he's just wiping the tears away from the first couple of podcasts. I guess for me with mastering, I grew up listening to pretty like lo-fi IEMs and lo-fi speakers and stuff, and I used to love stuff like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I used to listen
Let's
to a lot
go.
of angry music when I was a kid. And I don't know, as I kind of like moved up the audio chain, I found that I can't really listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers unless it's either on a vinyl system or in my car. Like I can't actually really listen to like Californication. That the whole album is amazing. Like it's lyrically genius and it's fantastic. But like if you listen to it, it is like brick walled as hell. Like it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rick Rubin
a
destroyed that
wall of
shit.
bad- Everyone's talked about this. It is a hard listen if you have even a remotely accurate sounding system. It's just going to be a very difficult thing to listen to. So I feel like I almost avoid some really poorly mastered music on my normal system. And then for road trips and stuff, man, I listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers all day on in my car. But it's just if I put on HD 800 or if I put on my ATC speakers, it's just like I can't listen to it. It's too painful. But then there's a flip side to that too. Like London Grammar's original album with Hey Now and those songs on it it was recorded in a garage, and like if you listen to it on car speakers, it's amazing, and if you listen to it on HD 650, it's amazing. If you listen to it on HD 800, it gets harder to listen to. But at the same time, there's like the better the gear, the kind of more beautiful her voice sounds, which kind of like overrides the fact that there's like random background hiss and that sort of stuff going on. So I don't know. I seem to sort of make the rules up as I go. So sometimes I'm like, the song is so great that even though you hear more and reveal more of the imperfections, like you kind of get more out of the good parts too. So it kind of balances out. But there are other songs that I'm like, no, I don't play that in here. That's an embarrassment. We just listen to that in the car. Like, so I don't know, and I'm not big on EQ, and I mean I could switch to NOS on my DAC, and that kind of like smooths things over and makes it a bit more tolerable. But then it also kind of like smooths other things out that I don't like. So I just I just became really picky, and if it's not really well mastered, I typically don't listen to it on a high end system, like just because I don't get the same appreciation as I do listening to it in my car. So
And
I still enjoy it, but yeah, just not on the good system.
anecdotally, I have acknowledged the fact that London Grammar ends up on a lot of Can Jam playlists. I never knew why. So this was extremely enlightening to hear about London Grammar from a different perspective. Thank you.
Oh, a lot of people regard it as like a really well produced album. You can literally put Hey Now on and clip some amplifiers to death if you turn it up loud enough. Like it clips so hard at about 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Like it's crazy. So I see it. A lot of boomers put it on their playlist, and they're like, she's got such an amazing voice." And I'm like, "Yeah, but if you actually if you have a really good system, this song is almost unbearable." But at the same time, like I said, her voice is just
Yeah.
insane. So
Yeah. I love London Grammar. I love I love I love Hey Now, but my favorite song of hers is Wasting My Young Years. It hits
uh,
me a certain way.
I think it hits everybody when you listen to the lyrics. You're like, "Oh God,"
Yeah.
it kind of hits you in the feels a bit.
I will
Yeah.
definitely add that to my playlist for tonight after the podcast is over.
She's touring at the moment. The her and her band, of course. She actually has quite bad stage phobia. And so the amount of live recordings that she has is very minimal. Like there's only a couple of there's like a BBC one that they did live because I really love if someone's got a vocal style and a talent like her. I really want to hear what she can do live. But in front of huge stages, she gets petrified. So she's currently touring with Coldplay, and yeah, she seems to have gotten over or at least been able to cope with her phobia. So I'm hoping there's going to be more and more and more live music from her because her live is like otherworldly. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those
Like
like a yeah.
to piggyback off that, like I've found that a lot of artists that were afraid of being on stage, or they had some phobia about performing, or maybe they were just naturally introverted or didn't think they were that good, were actually incredible. Like the example that sticks out to me is Eva Cassidy's Blues Alley. She was introverted as hell. She was weary about performing in front of people. She had a cold. Um, if you know anything about Eva Cassidy at Blues Alley, like it was one of the only times like she was captured um vocally live. Well, in general, because she sadly passed away, I think a year after the Blues Alley, but that album almost didn't happen because she had a cold. She didn't like the way she sounded. Like she heard all the tracks from it and she said, I hate it. I don't want it being put out into the world. And like I think the first half of the recording actually got it had technical issues, and then so many years went by they were able to like restore it, or they found the missing um tracks. Um if you look back at it, if you listen to Eva Cassidy's like Live at Blues Alley recordings, she sounds phenomenal, like one of the best voices I've ever heard. And to think that, she was kind of afraid of getting up there. She didn't think she sounded good. She didn't like her voice at all. It just really goes to show that so many brilliant artists actually do feel that way, but they're actually amazing and just don't know their own potential. So it doesn't surprise me. I didn't know that about London Grammar, because every time I hear her voice, I think, oh my God, she's so phenomenal. She could just, get on a stage and own it. And, um, you know,
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You'd think that with that voice, you'd have all the confidence in the world. Like you literally have a show-stopping, like angel level voice.
yeah,
I would say, in kind of response to that, I feel like the vocalists that I listen to are very confident in how um, amazing they are, and if anything, they kind of overdo it. But as I've been exploring my system a bit more, my appreciation for good vocals has gone way up when I've listened to either speaker setup, the one speaker setup being at my desk and the other in the living room. But I mean, even still, like both, I feel are so good default at being extremely revealing for the vocal range.
yeah. I also gained a huge appreciation for really nice vocals, especially I stuck a 300B tube amplifier in my speaker system, and I think the first thing I noticed about it, I came on here and I said, "Oh my God, the vocals." Um, because yeah, I am a huge sucker for vocals, and anything that I can do to my system to make vocals sound better, sound more pleasing, I am all about.
Okay, hang with me here. Smod, are you up?
Sorry, yeah, I just had to step away. I'm back.
Okay.
Okay, we thought you were asleep.
No. I had to take care of my parents. Sorry about that. But
It's okay.
yeah.
All good.
It's okay. I feel like I just wanted to make sure.
No, I really appreciate the discussion, and it's been a kind of a heavy episode, and I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Any final words from anyone?
Well, what about you? What do you want to comment about how you enjoy well mastered music on your various systems?
Yeah,
Or
for
how to
sure.
deal with poorly mastered music.
For sure, I would say that with well mastered music, it's greatly enhanced my enjoyment of the music, and as I journeyed from like my beginning when I started with my like Super Lux 668 and a laptop to where I am now, I always appreciated you know, I grew to appreciate the fact that the mastering makes a huge difference. Like it can make a pretty humble system sound incredible, and then it can make like if it's not good, it can make an incredible system sound like garbage. And so yeah, and you get an ear for it. Like once you keep listening to things, eventually you get to kind of appreciate what is and what isn't, and you kind of gravitate. I find myself gravitating towards well mastered music more often, but of course there's still music that is very, you know, music that you love that isn't, like, you know, for example, Bill Evans playing, like he has something about the way he plays that, you know, even my other favorite jazz pianist or just can't do it the way he does. And so sometimes I come back to it, and I guess my approach for that is I just focus on the enjoyment factor. I don't really kind of, you know, analyze it, or I don't like listen for the detail. I just enjoy the overall flow and the ambiance of the music, and the music kind of speaks for itself, even if it's older or not well mastered. So that's kind of my approach. And then I think tube amps do help as well. But I mean, I kind of just like the sound of tubes with pretty much most everything, and so I just apply it to pretty much everything. I may get to a point where I kind of swap more between solid state and tubes, but for now, I think I just kind of gravitate more towards tubes, and it just makes everything sound good. Well mastered music still shines. Kind of poorly mastered music is, you know, more listenable, and I guess if you're talking about headphones, swapping headphones is a technique too. Like, you know, if it's more poorly mastered, you go to like the Black Silk 650. If it's something that's ultra high res, or I'm not high res, ultra well mastered, then you can go to 800, and then you get that synergy. So I guess that's my approach.
Yeah, I feel like with you bringing that up, um, kind of says something about my own music discovery process, which is I try and listen on solid state gear on the initial listen to see, not literally, but in this particular example, a more reference version of what's being played back to me. And then if I really want to enjoy it, I'll use the Studio T, I'll use the speaker system, and really be able to max it out as much as I can.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I like that approach. I think that it comes down to different, different pieces of gear, different pieces of equipment that can also kind of fine tune things, right? Like if you,
Even myself, like, I
yeah,
know that I look at my tubes, like, I okay, short but sweet. I know how much I paid for them. I know how much solid state maintenance costs, the prices are not the same. I would rather enjoy stuff on solid state than dwindle the lifetime of my tubes. It's that simple.
For sure, yeah, for
Makes a lot
sure.
of sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's one thing I do like about stuff like Bottlehead though is that it's cheap gear. Tubes tend to be cheap, fairly cheap, and then so I don't feel as bad running it. But if you're listening to Studio T or that kind of stuff, then totally that makes a lot of sense. 300B and 283 and all that stuff. So that makes a lot of sense. There is
Yeah,
that
I
whole.
mean, even if there was a budget tube amp, I think I would still feel guilty. So even though the example was studio, an Eddie Current studio, even still, if I had, a cheaper tube amp that I still owned, I think I would still feel the same. Like that similar guilt would still be there for wearing out the life of a tube as opposed to wearing out the life of a solid state component.
Yeah, I remember Midfi guy. He has a YouTube channel, and he says that when you listen to tubes, it's like you're burning money. It's like money is burning as the tube is like heating up and glowing and stuff like that. So I totally understand what you're saying. Um, I'm reminded of holy fuck, and he said that the only solid state amps he's heard that replicates tubes like totally uh, are Dart Zeal, and so I'm curious to hear Dart Zeal one day, aka the Oompa Loompa amp, and hear if that is true, if it has that kind of tubiness to it or whatever that intangible quality that many people are drawn to with tubes.
You know what, Smod, I'll send you a link. Don't worry, I'll send you a link.
All right, thanks.
Loop me into whatever that is. When Holy says Dart Seal, is he talking about the speaker amps?
Yeah, I think he's talking about the speaker amps. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
can you get me on the info train as well?
Yeah, sure.
Just post in
I'll
the
share it with
podcast chat.
everybody, but only
'Cause,
people here.
I'm really on a side note, I'm really excited to get the holy fuck inspired. I'm calling it the Frankencrack. Uh,
Frankencrack.
yeah,
I've been wanting to do that one
Frankenstein.
myself just to see what a bog standard crack build versus just another interpretation. I just want a different set of guidelines to be able to like direct me towards a different type of sound but still being within the same amp. I would
Yeah.
honestly, I would love to try that.
Yeah, I just got the. I'm not doing the full holy mod, but I'm doing like a partial. So he told me like start with the Bradley Allen resistors and the Muse ES Nichicon caps. So I just got them. So I'm gonna do that first. And he said like if you like that sound, then you add on the vintage Siemens caps, like the big ones that
I
Lana's
got
getting.
those.
Yeah,
Yes,
Lana's gonna get it.
I spoke to someone, Tommy Takis. I hope he doesn't mind me giving him a shout out, but he did the holy mod with the big Siemens, like whatever they are. They're not transformers, are they? Um, what
They're
are they?
caps. They're caps, I think.
Okay, yeah. See,
Capacitors. Yeah.
I thought they looked like transformers because they're basically two giant bricks. But anyway, he did that whole mod that's wholly inspired that I'm getting, and he has a modded Eddy Current 2A3 MK4, and he
Yeah.
says that they sound so close. Now I don't
Wow.
know. Yeah, he says that he like directly compared his Frankencrack to the Eddy Current 2A3 MK4, and he said he sent me a DM because he found out that I was getting this Frankencrack built, and he said, Lana, like I A-B'd them, and it's stupid how ridiculously close this sorry, I keep calling it a Franken crack. It's so heavily modded. That's what I call it. He said it got so close to his Eddie Current. Um, so yeah, I've already had a few people like messaging me as well, being like, this was before I sold Euphoria. They were like, this bottlehead crack is gonna blow your Euphoria out of the water. You might as well just sell it now. And I had a few people tell me that, and I was like, well, like I was already thinking about it. But anyway, yeah, if modding a bottlehead crack really can buff it to that extent to where it can compete with something in the $3,000 $4,000 price range, then I'm really excited. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that's insane. If it can compete with the modded Mark IV, that's unreal. My kind of soul mission is to at some point hear the Stellaris and then compare it to what I have, and then if there's a substantial difference or a gap, or if there's a quality of it that I like, then to somehow build something that can go in that direction of Stellaris. But I don't know when that will ever happen because those won't come up for sale very often, and I doubt I'll find somebody in Canada that has it, and the 1 year wait time and all the money involved. So we'll see if somehow I can make that happen. But yeah, I talked to one guy on HeadFi who had the Stratus V4, the one with the audio note transformers, and he didn't have the OG crack. He had crack with Speedball, and he said like Stratus was far better in terms of like layering and like detail, and it was more like 3D. And he's like crack sounded flat. But the thing is that I found that crack sounded flat with Speedball too compared to the OG. OG was more 3D and holographic. So yeah, who knows? Like maybe the Holy mod does elevate crack or takes the sound into a direction that you'll love. And I mean, you're gonna know because you have the Euphoria and the Espressivo sound burned in your head. So when you hear it, if you love it, you'll know that how much
I
better it is.
do. And the funny thing about it is, I think the Felix Espressivo is better than the Euphoria.
Yeah, that's
Um,
impressive.
the thing with the Euphoria versus the Espressivo, I know the Espressivo uses smaller octal tubes, and the Euphoria uses bigger octal tubes, 6S and 7s and whatnot. And someone told me the bigger ones actually are supposed to give you more. So people have speculated that perhaps it is something within the Euphoria's internals. Um, for example, my Espressivo, it has bass, it has punch, it's not flabby, it has nice slam for a tube amp, and the Euphoria, in contrast, the bass is very loose, and it's like being hit in the face with a pillow. So that was my main struggle with it, because I've tried tube rolling it and I've done this and that, and I've just come to the conclusion that no matter what tubes I rolled into it, I was hitting some sort of bottleneck that was present with each tube roll, like something that was just inherently there. And maybe if I was the type of person who knew how to mod, I would go in and I would replace like the fuse, the capacitors, the resistors, but I didn't feel comfortable enough doing that. And given the cost, I also didn't feel comfortable enough. Like, I'm sure I could have found someone, particularly in Sonic Visions, because I know we have a lot of DIY guys. I'm sure I could have found someone who I could have paid to like heavily mod a Euphoria, but I don't know. It just seemed like too much hassle. The thing was expensive. I kind of just wanted it gone. It was one of my biggest audio disappointments because I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this, but I got it into my head many years ago. Um, I think like around 2017, it became my dream amp. And I don't know why because I never heard it. So like highly irrational looking back at it, but I just decided it was my dream amp and I read up so much about it and there was a huge hype train and it looked pretty. The big octal tubes, the 6S and 7s, and especially the stock tubes use the Coke bottle shaped tubes, which I really think are super aesthetic. Um, I just got it into my head that I wanted a Euphoria, and for many years I lived with that desire to have it, and people told me, don't get it, it's lo-fi, it's not worth the price. But it was just, for whatever reason, too ingrained within me that I wanted to have it because it was my dream amp. And why it was my dream amp, I have no idea. And when I got it, oh my god, like several years worth of anticipation just leading up to that disappointment. It was like a punch to the gut. So I tried to make it work. It just, I never grew to like it all that much. And this is gonna sound weird, but it was like if you've ever had a piece of gear that's like the least favorite child, and every day, like you look at your stuff and you're like, ah, Bracasti, I love you. Ah, my other stuff, I love you. And then, like, ah, it's you. You know? Like every day I would look at my Euphoria and I'd be like, ah, it's you. Like, you're my least favorite. So that's how I felt about it, and that's why I sold it. Ugh.
Do you ever see yourself going the DNA route?
Um, I I think it's highly praised and I wouldn't mind trying it. Of course, like the main issue is a lot of the stuff you can't like demo it that easily. So that's my big hang up
Yeah.
because if I could hear it, I would probably decide if I wanted it or not. But since I can't, it's all just a bunch of speculation and relying on word of mouth.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah.
admit that where I am right now, I don't feel like shifting towards something else, regardless of whatever the recommendation might be, just because I feel like I'm at home base.
Hmm. Well, given what I've
Totally.
heard about Studio T, I probably would feel the same way too.
I mean, I meant that regardless of the system, but okay. It's also applicable too.
I mean, that's how I feel in terms of DAC. I feel like I'm home base with the DAC scenario because I know
Yeah.
for a while Smod and I would waffle, and one of the things that I would waffle was what DAC should I get? And oh my god, that went on for months. I would just be like sliding into the DAC channel, being like, guys, you have a DAC recommendation? I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And um
I mean, if I were choosing now, I would probably have a different viewpoint, but as it were, I appreciate where I've arrived to. Anyway, I'm sorry for interrupting, Lana. Go
no,
ahead.
it's all good. But anyway, what it came down to was there were two DACs that kept um popping up. It's like there were two sides, like I imagine them like two gangs. There was the Bracasti gang and then there was the Hollow May gang, and they would both be trying to pull me to one side or the other. And I got a chance to hear Bracasti in person, so ultimately that was what persuaded me to buy it because I heard it. If that make like I heard it, I touched it, I saw it, it was real. It was not just a concept, not just this abstract word of mouth thing that I had no idea if it would actually satisfy me or, you know, live up to my expectations. So that's why I went with Bracasti. So that same sort of logic definitely carries over to amps. Like people could tell me, oh, like a DNA or an eddy current or what have you is just the best thing ever, but I guess I'm becoming the type of person that if I can't see it, if I can't hear it, if I can't validate it myself, then it's almost like the hype doesn't exist.
Yeah. No, and I feel like now I I recognize sorry. I recognize those same flaws in myself. I recognize where if something is nebulous and not able to be heard, it's okay to pass. It is okay to say, I'm enjoying what I have right now. I'm not missing out. There is no journey to be had. You can enjoy what you have right now in the fact that you still have something that works, it still powers on, it still makes you happy. There, like, that to me, and at least what I've applied since 2021 has been like, that is literally the end game. You want to be in a position where it's like, yeah, okay, somebody online is talking about something cool, but I'm enjoying what I have.
Yeah, because there's always going to be something better. Like, we think the stuff that's being hyped right now, like, I understand the desire to want to try it. I think it's a curiosity. I think you can definitely be content with what you have and at peace with it, but still have that sort of curiosity, like, I wish I could try that. And I think that's very normal to have, but like in a year or two, there are going to be more things that are going to be hyped. And then the year after, there are going to be more things that are like the flavor of the month, the currently overhyped things. And I think it's unreasonable to like try to go out of your way to hear everything that is currently being hyped or will be hyped. It'll get expensive if you plan on buying and then reselling, or even like travel costs just to hear some of this stuff. Um, I think it's just quite a hassle. So I think there are people that definitely I see these people around that they have to have the newest thing, the best thing. Like before they even hear the thing, they'll sell their current thing and buy the better thing. Um, I remember I did that once and it backfired on me. I remember I sold the Meze Empyrean because the Elite got announced and everyone was talking about how the Elite is so much better. And then I heard the Elite and I was like, well, they just nerfed the thing I loved most about the original, which was the base. Um, and like I totally get that Empyrean is vastly overpriced and sounds lo-fi as hell, but it was just a very comfy, cozy listen for me. An expensive, comfy, cozy listen to me, but like a comfy and cozy listen nonetheless. And that was my one time when I got on the hype train. I listened to word of mouth. People said the newer model would be better at everything. And technically, like, I can say that's true. It didn't bring me the same type of joy. And to this day, I regret selling it because despite the fact that I know it's highly overpriced and does not sound its price tag at all, like, there were things about it that I missed and I loved, and I kinda wish I had it back. I just wish it was cheaper and easier to acquire. But
Yeah.
yeah, point being, like, and I guess Euphoria is another example. I had the Felix. This is a funny story. I had the Felix Espressivo, and I sold it to my friend Multikill from Sonic Visions, and I bought the Euphoria because like Kevin Deal said the Euphoria was like a much better version of the Espressivo, and other people on Headfire were saying that, and I was hyped because I already liked it. And I was like, okay, I'll get the Euphoria, it'll be a step up, and I did not feel that way about it at all. So I sold the Euphoria, and my friend sold me the Espressivo back for what I sold it to him because he said he actually doesn't use it all that much, so I could have it back. So it's like I came full circle back to the cheaper thing that I sold to get the more expensive and better thing that I ended up not even liking. So, yeah, definitely enjoy what you have. Um, the thing that has brought me a lot of peace is to stop caring about price. Um, Stop associating enjoyment with price tags because I used to think, oh, if this thing costs more, it's probably better. Breaking free of that mentality was one of the best things to happen to me in audio because, um, no joke, like the last HeadFi meet I was at, there were lots of amps and DACs and headphones, a lot of it costing thousands of dollars a piece. And the thing that impressed me the most was sticking a Sennheiser 580 on like a basic bitch tube amp in my DAC, you know? Um,
Yeah.
and I heard like thousands of dollars worth of stuff there, and a lot of times I would put on something that like cost 3,000, or I would stick it on a component that cost 3,000, and I'd just be like, meh. Like that's the only thing I can say. I was just like, meh. Sounds like a headphone, or sounds like an amp, or sounds like a DAC, like it didn't tickle my fancy enough. So, like when a lot of people ask me, well, do you plan on trying like DNA or these other um highly praised like tube amps or other components? I don't know how much I'll like it. That's the issue. So that's what holds me back from splurging a ton of money on something that very well may be good or great. Like I just have no idea of knowing.
Yeah. No, I get that, but I also, because of the situation I put myself in, feel like I'm there and I'm welcoming you into that realm. um all right, well, I think we should sign off.
Yep, that sounds good. I really appreciate it, guys. It was an awesome comeback episode after so long, and I really appreciate the discussion. And thank you so much. And hope we can do it again soon.
All right, take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you
Later,
so
y'all.
much for having us, Mod.
Absolutely, anytime.
Bye.
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 Bye.